up this stiff as a proof to something he had mentioned. So we'll read this. We're going to start with Sif Dalad right now. Sif Dalad. Here we go. Remember last week we had a whole discussion. Sif Gimel was all about the word ata and the implications of saying the word ata is depending on your kavanah, perhaps it made a difference. We saw the Aruch HaShulchan said there should be no differentiation here. It's like making any error, and you should go back to, or you should either just, if you went past ata, chonein, so you just actually, he thought you stop in the wherever you are, and you pick up with the Shabbos middle bracha. That was not the opinion of necessarily Shulchan Aruch, but
certainly not the truth, I don't think.
right. Most people have been taught to finish, right? Yeah. The Aruch HaShulchan was questioning this practice, saying, why? Why are we doing this? Because at the end of the day, no one is, you're doing it because you're on autopilot, not because, if you really did think, by the way, that it was Wednesday and you're davening, and then you realize, oh, it's not Wednesday, that's a different story. But most of us are not having that assumption. Most of us are just on autopilot when we make this mistake. So
doesn't mean we don't have.
Well, of course, right. Our kavanah is, for the words, but not for awareness of in the moment, the awareness of the time. Okay. So
but we never repeat avos.
No, the first three brachos is those are the same every single day. So there's no need to go back all the way to the very beginning. Yeah. Okay. That's consistent with a halacha. If you make a mistake in the middle of the Amida, let's say in the middle of section of let's say something goes wrong with the V'tein bracha, right? Let's say you say V'tein talamat bracha, you didn't say V'tein bracha, so you should go back to the bracha barech aleinu when you realize that you're still in the middle of Shemona Esrei. We're actually going to talk about this today. It's going to come up right in Sif Katan. Sorry, in Sif Hey. Fifth all begins. Misha yispal tefillah shel chol b'Shabbos below hizkir shel Shabbos below yatsa. Okay, this is hopefully should be an obvious fact to everybody. Most of the time, when you leave out the topic of the subject of the day or the uniqueness of the day, you end up having to repeat the Amidah. The one exception being, let's see who can name the exception rule. So usually, if you forget the Alav Yavo on Chol Hamoed, Pesach or Sukkot, you have to go back to repeat the whole thing. If you forget here in this case, if you daven the weekday davening on Shabbos and you don't mention Shabbos at all, you're not Yotzei the Tefillah, and it means you have to go back and do it again. Excellent. Marav Rosh Chodesh is the one exception where Shachar, if you forget, you have to repeat the Amidah. If you forget at Mincha, you have to repeat the Amidah. If you forget at Mariv on Rosh Chodesh, so one exception where you don't have to repeat it. Why? There's a svara to that. We'll get to when we get the Hilchos Rosh Chodesh in like 4 or 5 years. Anyone know? What was that? First of all, Mariv is a whole reshut, but also when they did Kiddush HaChodesh, when of course the witnesses see the new moon, it's saw it at night. When could they testify to the fact that there was a new moon? Only in the morning. So there would never have been, historically speaking, a Yalav Yavo at night on Rosh Chodesh. Okay. So, anyways, so that's the halacha. If you forget if you do the whole Shemona Esrei and you're like you already took your 3 steps back, and okay, forget it. You got to daven again. Even though, by the way, we said by the letter of the law, weekday Shemona Esrei, the brachos are technically allowed. But if I didn't mention Shabbos at all, somewhere in there, I didn't stick it in somewhere before I took 3 steps back. Essentially, then I have to do the whole thing over again. And that's where you have to go back to the first 3 brachos. If you do mention Shabbos at some point in the midst of the Shemona Esrei, it says 86 on the top right hand corner. Yeah. So if you mention Shabbos in the Shemona Esrei somewhere, even though you didn't fix a bracha for Shabbos, now there wasn't one whole bracha that was dedicated to Shabbos like we usually do every week. On Shabbos, nonetheless, you have fulfilled your obligation of the Amidah, and you don't need to repeat the Amidah, even though you basically didn't even say the bracha for Shabbos. Okay, you didn't say the Mekadesh Shabbos bracha. Somewhere in there, you mentioned that it's Shabbos. Think about how we on Rosh Chodesh when we mention Yalav Yavo in Ritzei. So let's say in the middle of Ritzei, I've already passed somewhere. I mention it. I mention, something about Shabbos. I say whatever. I use my own words, and I don't go back. I don't do that, which we're gonna see. Maybe you should have gone back, but let's say that that's what I did. You're still Yotze.
It's actually interesting because he's saying he's scared.
Mentioned exactly. I mentioned it.
Yeah.
I mentioned it. It wasn't like a whole. I didn't add a whole paragraph in. I just
Even if it's Shabbos, right?
something. I said something about Shabbos. That's it. That's good enough. Now the Ramah here says the Musaf. Afilu Amar. This is what we mentioned previously because it came up in the Mishnah. In Musaf, if I didn't say, if I only said lo rak, right? If I only said, quote, Vinas telefanecha eschavosenu bismidayom uvakarban Musaf. Okay, I mentioned it probably in Ritzei. I say, and you shall make before you, and establish before you, make before you the obligations of the tzvidim of the twice daily offering and the korban musaf. Because in Ritzei, you talk about the reestablishing of the avodah, of the service, and so in there you mention and reestablish essentially the korban tamid and the musaf. That is, and the rest of the Amida was a weekday, not a weekday musaf or Rosh Chodesh musaf. It was a weekday Shmona Esrei, and you just stick that line in there. Yotza, your Yotze, the Shabbos musaf Amida. Let's take a look at the Mishnah Berurah now. Sifkat on test. So the last line by the Ramah is undoubtedly talking about musaf. The other part probably was not aimed at musaf, which is why the Ramah felt he needed to add that in there because you can mention Shabbos. This might be a mind blower, but I don't think it's actually crazy. Such a crazy idea. You can mention Shabbos in the musaf Amida and then have to go back and repeat the whole thing if you never mention the korban musaf. The whole point of the musaf Amida is that it is in place of the korban musaf. If I never mention the korban musaf, then I must go back and repeat the whole thing. Even if I said, let's say we're going to talk about this. The Mishnah was going to mention this. Let's say I said the Shachris Amida for Shabbos at musaf. Whatever. I don't know how it happened. I was on the wrong page. I don't know that seems like a hard scenario to imagine. But let's say I did that, and I only realized afterwards I have to go back and repeat the musaf Amida because I never mentioned musaf in there. Now take a look here at Sifkat on test. Yeah.
But here, when he's saying even in musaf, which musaf are you doing? It's not Shabbat. So he's talking about another Shemona or another Amidah. So he's either talking about Shacharit Shabbat or he's talking about Shacharit Shalchol, right? I mean
that you're davening in place of musaf.
Yeah.
Oh, of course, 100%.
So
100%.
So you've been saying Shacharit, and now he's saying, well, if you insert this, you can.
Then you'll get away with it.
You get away with it, but that could be that you're doing Shalchol or the
correct. 100%.
Right?
You're doing any kind of Amidah that doesn't mention musaf in a normal circumstance. That's weekday
that's got to be a very rare occurrence.
Yeah.
You're doing your second Tefillah already, right?
Yeah, that's what I said before. It's hard to imagine this would happen, but okay. So you ended up. It's more likely a scenario where somebody is new to tefillah, to the Shabbos, experience, and then they're on the wrong page. They thought whatever. I don't even know. That's kind of fun.
I think this more applied when they were saying it by heart. They didn't have a siddur.
Right. Maybe exactly.
Today you had a siddur. You're the right page.
Right. Yeah, you're right.
Except that, what I was just thinking about was that you could, it's time to daven musaf. And say, okay, so you flip to you flip to a musaf for Rosh Chodesh, let's say, at the back of your siddur, right, as opposed to going, realizing to the bottom, right, of your Rosh Shabbat, right? So I just
things can happen. The law in general, not just in Jewish law, right? That there are people who know much more about law around this table. But and virtually, I should say, add well. But the law always deals with the most extreme cases, so that those are dealt with, and then you can extrapolate to things that are not as far fetched. Okay.
So wait a minute, Rav. What I couldn't hear. What is the answer to BJ's point? If you do an Ata Yotzarta, and that has the musaf in it, you still are not required to go back. Is that correct?
You're saying to the Rosh Chodesh Musaf in place of the Shabbos
Right,
Musaf, right?
right. Shabbos, Rosh Chodesh, Ato Yotzarta.
I think that if you did the Rosh Chodesh Musaf in place of the Shabbos one, based on what we just said, I would think that you're probably fine. You mentioned the Korban Musaf. Even though my only hesitation is though the Korban Musaf of Shabbos is different than the Korban Musaf of Rosh Chodesh, which is why if it's a Shabbos Rosh Chodesh, you have two Musafim, right? You in the times of the Beis Hamikdash, they would have brought two Korbanos, for one for Rosh Chodesh, one for Shabbos in the category of Musaf. So I take back my confidence with that answer. I actually want to look into that question a little more. If one said the Rosh Chodesh Musaf, would that suffice for Shabbos? I want to, before I can't say with 100% confidence, I would like to look that up a little bit more.
Ah, you want to do homework.
I want to do
Listen,
homework.
but this reinforces the notion of tfilos b'makom korbanos.
Yes, no doubt that this is absolutely it's Keneged Korbanos Tikkum. Exactly. Yep. Fifth Katan test says the following: Shachol b'Shabbos. You daven weekday davening on Shabbos. V'im safek lo. Now this has never happened to any human being on the face of the planet.
So we're talking only Musaf or the Safek?
Now this is talking about the Shacharit, Ma'ariv, Mincha. Yeah. V'im safek lo im hispalol shachol shel Shabbos. Gam kein tzarech lachazor. You take 3 steps back, you even finish it, you're standing there, suddenly in the middle of Kedusha, you're like, what did I just stop in? What did I Shabbos? I have no idea what I said. Again, it's all theoretical. Then, Gam Kain Zarech Lachzor. You have to go back. Now, someone tell me why. There's a rule here that applies in many circumstances of tefillah. The reason is that we are on autopilot. The whole reason I'm in the suffix is because I was on autopilot. And autopilot halacha works the following. Whatever you're most accustomed to recently, we assume you did. So, for example, if let's say you didn't remember about you don't know, did I say Mashiv Baruch or did I not say Mashiv Baruch? It's the winter now. It's 2 weeks after Sukkot. So really that's a Shmini Atzeret. So now I'm in territory with Mashiv Baruch or Yeshem. I daven the whole thing. 3 steps back, the whole 9 yards. I like, did I say Mashiv Baruch or not? I don't remember. If I'm in that circumstance and I'm within 30 days of having made the switch, I must repeat the Amidah. I must assume that I didn't say it unless I have evidence suggesting that I did. What's one piece of evidence?
100 times.
Right. There are places that do that on Simchas Torah. They just repeat it 100 times.
We did that here once.
Yeah. I guess it didn't go over well. It didn't come back. The evidence could be I remember that I had in mind as I was starting the Amidah. I gotta say Mashiv Baruch. I had it in my mind. That may be one shred of evidence that okay, you had it in mind. Or I was not sure. Did I say? What was that? By the way, things like that can uproot the chazaka, right? I put a piece of tape, a colorful piece of tape, under Mashiv Baruch U'Morid Geshem, that's pointing with arrows in that direction. That could uproot a chazaka of autopilot. But if under normal circumstances I pick up a regular sitter and I just daven the whole thing, I have no idea. I have to go back because I was on autopilot. And the reality is, when it comes to this case, I daven more often the weekday Shmona Esrei than I daven the Shabbos one, and therefore I'm more accustomed to saying it.
It's interesting because you have the same notion with Sphira, right? If you're accustomed to saying it every day,
right,
and then you come like the time to say the next one, you said, "Oh, gee, I don't."
Did I remember last night?
The thing is that if you've said it every day, you can assume you've said it every day. You can make it. You can say it again, and you can make the bracha.
Right.
That he talks about that notion.
Yeah.
What do you do if it's a week after Pesach and you think you did say it? Because it's such a habit by now.
Yes, but this is the Shabbos Amidah, so you're not habituated to the words of
Mashiv Haruach.
And by the way, even during Pesach, by the way, during Chol HaMoed, we daven the weekday daven, right? On the Yom Tov, we say the special Amidah. I would think that would help here.
But the thing is, if you're on your Siddur, davening for Shabbat, and you can read on autopilot, and it's Shabbat.
So good. So now, okay, excellent. This is the one that I wanted to raise here. The one difference here that between that case, Shlomo points out perfectly, is that when I finish the weekday Shor Esrei, I'm on the right page. I don't remember whether I added Mashiv Baruch, did I say V'tein Bracha or V'tein Talamat Ale Bracha? I don't remember. But if I end the week, the Shor Esrei that I just said, and I'm on page 400 and whatever, because I was davening the Mustafa Amida, that is a strong proof that I said the correct Amida. And I think you don't need to go back and say it again. And I would add another fact. If you finished your Amida in a quarter of the time that it takes you to daven the weekday Amida, and you're aware of that, fact, because I took 3 steps back, approximately the same as everybody else did, and they all are davening a very much shorter Shmones. The Amida Musaf is much shorter than the Amida for the weekdays. Then, or better yet, I forget Musaf or Shachris. Then that is probably proof that you were davening the right Amida. If you suddenly took 3 steps back and everybody else has done before you, that's probably not a good sign for you, unless you're usually the last person to finish anyways. So that's the one thing I would say here, that you can use other circumstantial evidence to make the right decision. And he says here at the end here, this goes to Tommy's one before, that if you're davening without a siddur, you're davening by rote, because by what's going on in your mind, because you don't. Certainly, there was a time before printing press, but even when there was a printing press, not everybody had a siddur, and not everybody was literate. So you knew the davening based on the sound. So if you didn't, if you're going based on that, you don't have the page number or whatever to help you in this calculation. Today, Baruch Hashem, I don't know this is as big an issue where you have to repeat the Amida. You might say the whole wrong Amida, but then you really, I don't know, you probably weren't in shul also, because by the time you finish that weekday Amida, they were starting the repetition already, and then you'll be like, ooh, I'm on the wrong one.
I just listen to people. A lot of times you see people that finish faster than you could do the Shabbos Amida.
Oh, that's
even
true.
If you're going fast. But yeah. I have a different question. A lot of times, if there's if you're with a minyan, so there's going to be a chazara, right?
Yeah.
And so we're doing Shachrit or Mincha or Musa.
Yeah.
Do I have to go back if I can listen to the Chazan, do it correctly the whole way, and miss the whole Shabbos thing, right? Because it works in other places. Can I do that here?
Yeah. Generally, we say that we don't rely on the shots, on the shaliach tzibor. If I am able to daven, I have a personal obligation to do so, and I didn't fulfill it yet. The genesis of the shaliach tzibor, of course, was that people didn't know to daven, so they would respond. So yeah, maybe technically you can rely on it, but we say you should go back and do an individual amida again. That's across the board. Again, with Rosh Chodesh that happens too, with the Tein Bracha or Tein Talamat Ale Bracha. Those things. It's never is the suggestion. Okay, on the repetition, catch the wave.
But there are a number of situations where they say, if you forgot to say it, you can listen to repetition. You have to listen to every single word,
right,
and be responsive to it, right?
Right.
And you don't go back. I mean, I don't see it in this context, but I understand why.
Yeah, I don't know if there's I think that I remember years ago learning that if a person has the ability to do the davening on their own, then they have an obligation to do so.
Yeah, but you didn't grow up in Borough Park. That's what it sounds like to me.
where everyone was listening to the Amida to the shots. Yeah, no, I did.
So wait a minute, Rav. BJ raised a very interesting point. Chazoras Hashatz. If one didn't say it completely, or if one did not fully comprehend or whatever, we have the concept of Shomea Ka'oneh. Yes.
Right. Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
So why is one required to repeat when if there's a chashash and maybe he would say the shame without it really being necessary, but he's not sure, he doesn't remember. If he does Shomea Ka'oneh, isn't he off the hook?
Yeah, I think that the nature of the Shaliach Tzibor in sort of the halachic view, even though I'm not saying the halacha has changed here, but I'm being very careful to say this, that is the purpose of the Shaliach Tzibur to be motzi others? Rav Soloveitchik had a, and the answer is yeah, halachically the answer can be yes. Okay, but Rav Soloveitchik had a whole perspective on the difference between the private Amida and the Shaliach Tzibur. The private Amida is your own personal tefillah. The Shaliach Tzibur's tefillah is a communal tefillah, meaning the davening on behalf of the community. And therefore, there's a slightly different kavanah that is required for that, which is why it's important that you are quiet during the repetition, that you respond amen to the brachos. Maybe that even would lead you to think that you shouldn't say Baruch Hu Baruch Shemo. That's a whole different topic, because Baruch Hu Baruch Shemo may be an interruption. And maybe saying amen is you, just like we'll say that when you're yotze through a bracha, you don't say Baruch Hu Baruch Shemo. That's why people are very makbid for shofar. Don't say Baruch Hu Baruch Shemo. For Megillah, don't say Baruch Hu Baruch Shema, because it's an interruption to your listening of a continuous bracha. So therefore, you should only say Amen at the end of it, which would probably lead you to, anyway. So the point is here that the goal of the Shliach Tzibur may be not exactly in line with the Yochid being mostly his personal chiyuv. It can be, it certainly can be, but the nature of the Shliach Tzibur's tefillah is, as you can probably tell by my waffling here, it's not a simple topic, even though it may seem simple. It's, anyways. The halacha at the end of the day is that we do repeat if we make personal mistakes.
If that's not its purpose, Rav, what do we need it for? Why do I need the chazaras?
That's undoubtedly the question every morning, by the way. I'm only going to take a moment on this, which is that, Simeon, that why is it that if everybody this morning here, the minyan, daven personally on their own and they successfully daven the Amida, should be no reason whatsoever that the Shaliach Tzibur goes back and repeats it. It should be like Mara.
You wouldn't get a kedusha. Except with the runs. You just said what the Rav Soloveitchik said. It's completely
right. Exactly. So the nature, the purpose of the Shaliach Tzibur may have to have an additional or a separate and additional purpose than simply the personal tefillah of the chazan or of anybody else. By the way, to respond to that point about the kedusha, though,
additional, not different.
Right? Additional, but not different. Right? Exactly. There may be an additional, which is the purpose that allows there to be a repetition. And I think, by the way, that the Rambam tried to shut down the repetition of the Chazar Tashatz in Egypt. He tried to shut it down. Everyone was talking.
He did the opposite.
He did the opposite. He brought it back.
What happened was there was so much talk.
There's so much talking. Right.
Tefillah, that he eliminated the silent.
Because he said, everyone has to pay attention.
And he wanted and only did the full. The Chazan's and wasn't a repetition. The Chazan's
was saying it on behalf of everybody.
Yeah, saying it for everybody.
Yeah.
I don't know how long that was done for.
Right.
But it was
well
it
documented.
Really threw you. But it threw you back. And if you listen to what the Rav had said, right? I mean, clearly, he based part of that on what he learned from Rambam, because he and the Rav,
right?
The Rav used to say that the Torah was a commentary on Rambam, so I'm sure they had it, right?
The Soloveitchiks were very well known for their love of the Rambam, 100%. Okay, so no one's changing the words. The Matei of a bracha is the words. Yeah, yes. I mean, that's part of our tradition. That's why partly that's why we also keep it, because that's what it was always done. It was always done. Who are we to get rid of it? Because not that long ago, people needed this. People needed the Shaliach Tzibur so that they could be Yotzei Tefillah. And we are, Baruch Hashem, living in a time where Sidurim are plentiful. We are living in a time when there's so much literacy in reading Hebrew. And even those who don't, there's a siddur which is transliterated, so you can read in English what the Hebrew words are. But probably even today, there are people who, unbeknownst to us every week, on Shabbos mostly, they need to listen to the Shliach Tzibur. Maybe that helps them honestly be fulfilling their mitzvah of Amidah. Okay, their obligation, I should say. Okay, so now look at Yud. Lo Yotza, that if you forget the Shabbos, then you don't mention it. You know, Yotzei v'hu hadin b'Yom Tov. No surprise, that should be the same law in Yom Tov. And v'afil b'Yom Tov Sheni, even Yom Tov Sheni, where you might have thought, come on, Rabbi, you know that next year you're going to get rid of Yom Tov Sheni every year, every year the same. Rabbi, you can't get rid of it this year. So Yom Tov Sheni, you're like, okay, the whole thing is a suffix, whether it's actually just a weekday or not. So they thought, well, since it's already a suffix, is it really a Yom Tov or is it not a Yom Tov? Maybe she said the weekday Amida, so don't go back and repeat it. It's a bracha levatala. No, because and by the way, I just make a very strong point here. The whole zera, or my reader wants to make this point to us in shir. The whole zera of Yom Tov Sheni is that it is to be exactly like Yom Tov Rishon. Now, there are a sliver of halachot where you might be able to differentiate Yom Tov Sheni versus the others. One of them has to do with the burial of a mace. That's a separate point. It has to be aliyah non-Jews and whatever. But on Yom Tov Rishon, you wouldn't even entertain the question. But you have here the that's why he says vafilu b'Yom Tov Sheni. Don't think that you can. No, the gzeira of Yom Tov Sheni is that it is to be treated exactly like Yom Tov Rishon. What was that?
But it's not a suffix.
It's not something that it's Yom Tov Sheni.
No, it's not a suffix that it's whether it's Yom Tov or a fall. It's only a decree of the rabbis because of
of the suffix of the Yom back in the day.
From Minhag, it's just
correct. But that decree, right? Correct. It's and that decree. That's why they're saying the decree holds fast steady that you have to daven again in this circumstance if you didn't mention Yom Tov. Okay, Yud Aleph. This is talking about Musaf. The Ramah's comment that if you only say this line of that Hashem should reestablish the Tamid and the Korah Musaf wrote Amar be'achas bin abrachos. Somewhere you sick in an area you sick Yehiratzon shenasim lefanecha v'chulei. The kol shkeni mamar hanusaf shel musaf hamusaf kahalacha rak shechisa hapsukim shel korbanos liyotza. Let's say you were saying tikanta Shabbos hatzisa korbanosah, and you actually never mentioned the psukim of the korbanos. Remember, in each musaf, you have psukim from the Torah, which discuss that korban that's relevant, right? So on Shabbos, you have hold on. You can look at Kamor. Okay, good. And then on Yom Tov, on Sukkot, you have different ones for each day, right? You mentioned the psukim that relate to the Korah Musaf. So even if, let's say you forget that, even if you forgot that, but you were saying the rest of the Musaf, but you just forgot those the psukim of the Korbanos, you're Yotzei because you were talking about the Korban Musaf more generally, and therefore it is your Yotzei. Okay, that is Yudal. Now let's go back upstairs to Sifhei. We were davening weekday Amida on Shabbos, and you didn't mention Shabbos. If you have uprooted your legs, meaning you have taken 3 steps back, and now you realize the mistake, you have to go back to the beginning of the Amida. Okay,
including avos.
What was that?
Including avos.
Yeah, the whole Amida didn't register. It didn't register at all. You have to go back to the beginning. If you didn't uproot your legs, even though you finished the words, you only return to the part about Shabbos, meaning the middle bracha. The bracha talks that is named Kedushas Hayom. That's where you go back to, whether it's Shachris, it's Yismach Moshe, it's at Marif, it's Takidashta, Ata Echad, and Mincha. You go back to that part, not to the first 3, to the middle part. Oh, okay. Hold on. Hilchot Ratzon is going to throw a wrench. I can't answer the question fully. So give me a minute. The Mishnah is going to mention this. Hilchot Ratzon is a complicated line. Not to say it. The words are not too complicated, but the concept that comes along with it. Hold on. Excellent, Shlomo. You're anticipating the next move of the Mishnah Berurah here. So I'm going to answer your question, actually. Let's see. I just want to Let's see. Let's read about it now. This goes to Shlomo was asking this question. Take all your base. Ayin le'el simen kuf yod zayin sepei u'mishnah b'rasham. You gotta love when he writes that. By the way.
Right.
Then you have to go do your homework. So,
I'm sure you remember.
Yeah, no, of course. I remember all the Shas and the Mishnah Berurah by heart. Thank you for coming to me, Take so if you want to look, you can turn to that. Tell me if you want the note 14. He just gives you he actually tells you what the Mishnah Berurah says over there, and it'll be Sifkat on Yud Ches if you're looking over there and that Siman. So what he talks about, that's the discussion about the things that happen at the end of Shemona Esrei. It's earlier in Orach Chaim. If you don't have this, you have to have Chelek Aleph to see this, or Chelek Aleph to see this. Aleph, yes, Aleph. Shekastav Sham, Shim Amar. It says over there. Just listen. Now you're just listening because the Mishnah Berurah didn't actually give it to us here. So if you say Shim Amar Elokai Nitzor, the Yula Ratzon, and then you say Yula Ratzon at the end of Elokai Nitzor, Nechshav Shasiye Mesfilosa. That is considered as if you finished the Amida. Vafilu Adayin Lo Akar Es Raglav, and you have not yet finished. You have not yet though uprooted your legs when you haven't taken the steps back. So that is, he clarifies here, right, what it means to be done, but not taking the steps. Okay? And he quotes here, V'hosif b'sharat Sion, L'kamon, Shagamim Darko Lomar Yilaratza L'fnei Amiras L'Lokain. So if your practice, as most of us I think have, because that's what the Sidurim have, is say Yilaratza also in addition before Elokai Nitzor. Then the first Yilaratza doesn't count as finishing. When am I finished? When I finish Yilaratza. Okay?
No. Not when you finish, because when you finish, you're saying Oseh Shalom and you're being Ma'aker the Raglayim. You don't even have
before you say the words. No, Simeon, the words Oseh Shalom only are to be started after. I don't know if other people do this. You're actually supposed to take the 3 steps back and then say Oseh Shalom b'mromav, Yaseh Shalom alayim. So Oseh Shalom is already out. Now,
well, that's
Steve
what
here
he's
on the
talking
table.
about here. All he's doing is
clarifying the moment.
He says exactly what the Shulchan.
He's not arguing. Exactly. He's clarifying when is the. Exactly, he's trying to clarify when is considered the end of tefillah, and then
Excuse me. You might have thought that it was at Bashalom.
Right, but
right
it's not.
At the end of the bracha.
That's right.
And he's saying, no, it's not the end of the bracha. It's before you move your feet. That's why he stated it that way.
Correct.
Yeah, but you said it here so before you move your feet.
That's why you might have thought that there was a siyum bracha, that there was a siyum of the tefillah, and then I kept going with other things. And the Elokai, it's sort of something different, and therefore, whether you move your legs or not, you're like totally in a different world right now. The answer is no. You literally are in the spot where you finish the tefillah, meaning the second Yul Ratzon. Now you have not taken the 3 steps back, so you haven't truly removed yourself from tefillah. Meaning, if you wanted to say something more, maybe there's still an opening now for me to, because really you're allowed to add your own personal, personal bakashos, things I need that Kadosh Baruch Hu's help for. You can even say it in English, by the way, whatever you want to. That's the time to do it. Is usually say, by the way, you usually right
just
before
you move your feet.
Right.
After you can still stay.
You can. So now it's interesting here.
What's interesting, I think that the reason he was clarifying the point is because I think most people figure when I say Baruch Hashem, right, and and I end with Shalom,
Right. That's over.
That I finished
right.
Tefillah, and he said, no, let's be clear.
Right.
And
I'll add, by the way, that let's say that, this is it's not halacha. I'm about to say, if you ever find yourself in a scenario where you realize that in order for me to say kedusha with the tzibor, I'm close. If you're in that circumstance, you're allowed to finish. You say and then you skip Elokai Nitzor. and you go right to Oseh Shalom and take the 3 steps back, because if that's different than you saying the kedusha with the tzibor or not, you should actually do that. You should skip it because that's more important. It's an halacha. I'm not making this up. Don't accuse me of anything. That's a halacha. It shows you that Elokai Nitzor is a part of tefillah. It can be skipped in certain circumstances, but it's a part of tefillah, and that's how we treat it. We treat it like a part of tefillah. And also, the Gemara talks about in brachos that Hashem Sasai Tiftach and Yul Ratzon at the end are a part of tefillah, which is why Hashem Sasai Tiftach is not an interruption between Geula and tefillah. That's how you can get away with that. And Yul Ratzon is also part of tefillah. It's part of the same thing, which was Rav Soloveitchik was makbid. You had to say Yul Ratzon, and Yul Ratzon is a chazan after you finish Havarech Hashem B'Shalom, and you say out loud.
Yeah.
Not whispering, can't skip it, because it's a part of the tefillah. So until you've said that, the last Yul Ratzon, you are still engaged in tefillah. Then you've gone to the end, and then we can talk about Oker Raglav, about taking the steps back. Now, let me just go to Yud Gimel now. Yud Gimel, Lishel Shabbos. Yeah. That's the.
Yeah, you don't have to.
Yeah, which is why, by the way, I meant one thing I said. If you're going to add something personal, I think you're actually supposed to say it right before the last Yul Ratzon. Yeah, right before the Yul Ratzon. I was realizing I made that mistake. Right before, because that should be the last words of tefillah, and then you take your steps back. So now, let's say you realize the case now we're dealing with is that I realize, when do I have to go back? If I've taken the steps, right? I've taken the steps. That's when I have to go back to the beginning. I just want to actually finish the note I was reading here before. Yeah, if I say Yul Ratzon, but I didn't take a step back yet. Then I have a realization, I have an epiphany that I didn't go back. Then I only have to go back to where the middle bracha starts. That's where. Yeah.
You say the middle bracha and then you finish up.
You go, you say the whole. No, you say the middle bracha and you say the whole thing from that point on. That which is likely happens if you catch yourself in a Vitain bracha mistake. You go back to Vitain bracha, and from there you go forward. If you and then you can catch that, you can be in the middle of Sim Shalom and catch that and be like, okay, then you go back to Arech Aleinu, right? You go back to where the mistake was. Okay.
Excuse me, Rav.
Yeah.
Rav, did you say that you add your personal tefillot even after Oseh Shalom or just before Oseh Shalom?
You should say it before you Yul Ratzon. If you have something you need to ask Kadosh Baruch Hu for, you should say it before you Yul Ratzon. Yul Ratzon is the concluding line, which is why actually I didn't finish that comment that is in Dirshu, which is important because Steve was on the other side of the table. You probably couldn't hear him on Zoom. He said that, and he makes the point here that quoting the Sharat Sion that the Yul Ratzon. Anything that you say after that point is considered already as part of tachanunim, right? It's that's what you're trying to say before, Steve, right? It's like already now we're talking about supplications that then we have a formalized tachanun experience, but whatever you do afterwards, Oseh Shalom. And then the Ratzon about Hashem should reestablish the Avodah and the Beis Hamikdash. Those are all tachanunim. They're not part of tefillah anymore. It's all part of tachanunim. You're supplicating God outside the context of the formalized tefillah. Sorry, Simi, did that address the point?
But you see, Rav, I remember learning earlier that the insertion of personal bakashos is appended to Shema Kolenu. In fact, if you see the siddur, it has printed in it the tefillah for Parnasa and also one for the family.
No, you're absolutely. Shema Kolenu is a place where you can also add requests. Undoubtedly, you are not going to hear me argue that point. You are absolutely right, and you're allowed to add in the middle brachos Shemona Esrei on the weekdays. You're allowed to add things that are relevant to that topic of the bracha. Most of us are familiar with Rifa'enu adding in a tefillah for Cholim. That is permissible completely. Yeah, and many of the sidurim have a formula to say for.
And of course, we always have a lot of time to do that, so that we.
Oh yes,
right. Because everybody else takes their time and going through.
No. No, it's they go almost as slow as they do during long tachim.
I have no sympathy there because whereas Ashkenazim have that long tachim.
You guys say longer things every day.
No, we have the never-ending tachim on Tuesday and Thursday.
Oh, I didn't
Monday and Thursday. Yeah, we have the never-ending.
Oh, okay.
That's right. Well, you have the whole thing from Daniel, right?
Nice. Okay. Sometimes it's good to daven an Ashkenazi minyan. Okay, Yom Gimel. Hilchot Shabbat. Va'afilu nizkar kodem modim, and even if you remember before modim, okay, you're davening weekday Shemona Esrei before you get to modim. Lo yichlal osa ba'avoda. So you're like in the middle of Ritzei. So you're in the bracha of Ritzei. You're like, oh, I remember right now. Don't say, well, because on a regular Rosh Chodesh, I can say it in this bracha. I added special things. So okay, I made a mistake. I'll just add a little thing here in Ritzei. And I'll say, Ritzei na b'menuchaseinu b'yom ha'shabbos v'chulei, whatever. I say something, Hashem be, because it's Ritzei anyway. So Ritzei, the theme is a little bit similar. So we got, be appeased with my, in our rest on the Shabbos day. Lechatchila you have an obligation to say the bracha of Kedushas Hayom, the whole bracha. Just because you remember now in the middle of it, say, well, I'll get away with it. No, that's not lechatchila what you should do. Lechatchila, go back and say the bracha. Uv'di'avad yotza. It's only a b'di'evet halacha to be yotzei that I mentioned Shabbos somewhere. That's to just mention Shabbos is not the ideal. You really should go back and get the whole thing. That's the ikar mitzvah on Shabbos. It's only after the fact if I finished my esrei and I happen to have mentioned it. Okay, well, fine. We'll let you stick with that.
So I'll give it. So I'll take it.
That's right. Absolutely, they do. Okay, the Ramah here throws in shliach tzibur sheshachach Shabbos b'shachris. He says, "See, simin kuf kavav." If a shliach tzibur got away with forgetting all of the Shabbos shachris, God bless. I don't know. That's the Ramah mentions that here. It's he says to take a look at Siman Kuf Chavav. You know what? For the sake of completeness here, I didn't even take a look at it before. I thought the case was so ridiculous.
I would think that people would start yelling.
Yeah, people would be yelling. People would relish in the opportunity to correct them. Oh, they love it. Here, let's take a look at the Shulchan Aruch here, or Achayim. And this was 126, okay? And here he says, what happens if the Shliach Tzibur makes a mistake? By the way, that's more likely. You might get away with it during the week. Sometimes the Chassid gets away with certain things because not everyone's paying attention. It's hard to imagine not saying that they didn't say the same bracha or the same talamat bracha. They make the wrong one, and the other 9 guys were sleeping, right? And that can happen. And by the way, as I pointed out, when I was one time finishing, I was finishing up my personal Amida, and someone pointed out to me they didn't correct him in the moment. They said he said the same whatever, he did the wrong one, and I said, really? So then it was I think maybe he didn't remember the Chazan didn't say v'tein talamatar. Now you have to know. You have to be quick on your feet. What happens if you forget v'tein talamat on the bracha? You go back to Baruch Aleinu. What do you do? No, that's actually not. That's not option number 1. If you get past Shema Koleinu and you're already in Ritzei, then you go back to v'tein Baruch Aleinu. But if you catch yourself before that point, you can actually stick it in where, Simeon?
Shema Koleinu.
That's correct. You stick it in Shema Koleinu. So I actually stood next to the Chazan that day, right in Koleinu, and I said, "You didn't say this." So I said, "Don't say the words, but say Talamat Avracha in the spot where you're allowed to add things." That's actually option 1. That doesn't work the other way around, by the way. If you forget the Tain Bracha, it's not specific enough in Shema Koleinu to count there. So there you have to go back to Baruch Aleinu. These are the things they test you about in Smicha. Okay. Okay. So, so anyways, if you make a mistake with one of the brachos, and they don't remember where, there's a whole, they start. By the way, it says here. I'm just saying. They then they don't know where the place. So do you remove him? Do you not remove him? The whole question about when do you start moving the guy? That's the fun part of this whole sentence, by the way, over there is if he forgets the bracha on Mashinim, then you have to get rid of him right away because perhaps he's not be chorus. Because the Mashinim is all about taking down the heretics that he didn't want. That was how they tested if they were at Stuki. Okay. All right. Take a look at Sivav now. Now this is a maybe more likely mistake that could happen. I don't think it's so likely, but it could happen. You make a mistake on the Shabbos Shemona Esrei. If you say the Shachris one at Marav, you say the Marav one at Mincha, you mix up which Shabbos Shemona Esrei. Eino Choser. Let's say you're done and you finish the Amida now. You have this realization, oops, I just davened Shachris at Mincha. Hard to imagine in our day and age. It's more like what Tommy mentioned before, when they were davening more by memory, that maybe you could make such a mistake. It's hard to imagine when you're.
I think if you're doing it by memory, you'd be listening.
You'd be more
You'd be more cognizant.
Yeah.
I think it's probably more prevalent now.
You think so? Okay.
I think so.
So nonetheless, whatever the scenario is, you did this, and now you have a realization. Take a look at your Daled. In the Mishnah Berurah, Sheikar bracha revis he ritzevim nuchasenu. The essential part of the fourth bracha, meaning the middle bracha of the Shabbos Shemona Esrei, is ritzevim nuchasenu. Is that paragraph of Elokeinu ritzevim nuchasenu? That is the real essential part of the middle bracha. And you'll take note that each one of the Shemona Esreis of the Shabbos include that. With the exception that there's a change, which you all learn about now. We all noticed it that way in the Siddur. Va, vo, vom. Okay, everyone noticed it now in the Siddur? Okay, hopefully you've taken note. This is the halacha if you finish the bracha. But if you realize in the middle of the middle bracha, I'm saying the wrong one, oops, switch the page, go find the right one, and you'll start from the beginning of the fourth bracha, meaning the middle bracha.
Then you continue from there.
Then you continue from there, say the whole thing. It's only if you finish the Kaddish or Shabbos, you don't go back. If you're in the middle of the bracha, you go back to the beginning of the correct nusach for that time of day. Go back up on top to the Shulchan Aruch. Yeah. So if you were saying Yismach Moshe Mantat Chalko Kieved Naman Karatalo, oops. Okay, Ata Echad B'Shimcha, you'll go to the you'll start over. Yeah. The Shulchan Aruch here says V'yesh Omrim, which is a puzzling phrase, which we'll talk about in a second. Shim Hechlif Shal Musaf B'Acheres. Let's say you confuse Musaf, you start saying Musaf at Shachris, or Acheres B'Shal Musaf, or you start saying the Shachris at Musaf. Close there, then you go back, even if let's say you're finished.
You're saying why would you say it with Yesh Omrim?
Go take a look at the Mishnah Berurah. The Mishnah Berurah says, why is there a Yesh Omrim here? Ha'achronim tamhu. All the achronim ask. They're wondering. It's a wonder to them. Al ma shekosav b'lashon v'yesh Omrim. Why did he write v'yesh Omrim? The Kulei Alma Modim Hazeh. Everyone agrees to this. This is not an argument. Yesh Omrim is on this. There's two opinions. There's no other opinion here. Sometimes the Shulchan Aruch only mention one opinion. He'll say Yesh Omrim blah blah blah. The implication being like there are those who don't agree with this. But there is no other opinion on this one. If you mix up Musaf and Shachris and Musaf or Shachris with Musaf, you're going back. You go back to the middle. So if you're in the middle of it's like you're in Modim at Shachris and you realize I said Musaf during my Shachris slot, so you go back to Yismach Moshe. Or vice versa. I'm in the middle of, I'm saying Modim and it's Musaf time and I just realized I said the Shachris Amida, so now you go back to Tikat Shabbat.
So, but he did that to make the second half. He said Yesh Omrim is Musaf. So he's doubting the fact that must be if you change it to Musaf.
But there's no. But the question is that. Yeah, but the question is no doubt though. There's no opinion that actually. That's what he says. That's what the Mishnah Berurah's comments about. That all the Achronim they wonder. They all read the question. They say, "Why did the Shulchan Aruch write those words?" I don't know. You could look. I don't know what the original manuscript of the Shulchan Aruch is. That would be an interesting historical analysis here. And by the way, if you go to the YU library in the there's a section of the library, fascinating section of the library, which is rare books and manuscripts. You can't just walk into this section of the library. You actually have to be given permission with a key, and every librarian has to come with you.
Well, it's actually very interesting on this
Yeah.
too. It probably is a typographical or a
Yeah,
change.
scribal error.
No,
right?
because if not, the Ramah would have said that was a mistake and it should be taken out. And if the Ramah didn't comment on
Right.
that tells you that that sort of raises the question, right?
Right.
Because the Ramah wouldn't have let that by. I mean, right?
Right. Yeah.
As the ultimate commentary on the Shulchan Aruch.
Yeah. Yeah, it'd be interesting to look at some of the original manuscripts here to see if those words were there. It's really it's an academic question, not so much halacha.
So we still have to come up. We still have to come up with a unique element why it's different. What is? We have to discover what the difference is that requires the recitation of the V'yesh Omrim. There's something unique, something special about this, and we don't know what it is, at least not yet.
Correct. That's right. Nobody's been able to figure this out. The Achronim don't know. Yep. Take a look at Tez Zayin, which will answer the question about why is Musaf treated differently here than Mincha Shachris mistake or something like that. So Tez Zayin, what time is it? It's 8:30. Okay, so let's just read this comment, then we'll be done. Let's say I'm saying a Shabbos Amida and I'm davening it during Musaf. I'm saying Yismach Moshe. I didn't mention the Korban Musaf of Shabbos. Certainly if I'm saying a weekday Amida, that's for sure. But even if I'm saying the Shabbos Amida, and I didn't mention anything about the Musaf of Shabbos, then of course I have to go back. I can't be a Yotzei. At least the other ones had the idea of Kedushas Hayom is covered in all of them. But here I don't have anything about the Korban Musaf, so therefore I have to go back to the middle bracha. If I actually said the Shachros Amida and I was okay Raglav, I said that took the 3 steps back, I'm a goner, and now I have to say the whole Amida all over again from the beginning, not just the middle bracha. Then if I did catch myself before I took the 3 steps back, I would go back to the middle bracha of Musaf, which begins with Tikanta Shabbat. Because of Hachaye Adam, if I remember after I finish the bracha, I say the word Mekadesh HaShabbat, and before I say Ritzei, I have a realization that I just said the wrong middle bracha. And so now, before I begin Ritzei, I can say V'na'aseh lefanecha korban musaf, and we shall do it before you a korban musaf, v'yotza bazeh, and that is enough to allow me to be yotzei and not go back. This is what the Chai Adam says. I'm sure this is a very long-standing tradition in Hindus family, right? If you ever make this mistake that you do this. This is actually matches up with another halacha. That if I remember, I forgot to say Yalav Yavo, and I finished the bracha Hamachazir Shechinato Letzion, and then I realized, I didn't say Yalav Yavo in this bracha. So if I remembered after I said the word Modim Anach or Modim, I would actually go back to the beginning of Ritzei. Okay, and then I would say from there. But if I remember after I said Hamachazir Shechinato Letzion, I actually should say Yalav Yavo right then and there, in that spot, and I get to the end of the phrase, at the end of the paragraph, and then I, that's what you're supposed to do. It's happened to me, and I've actually caught myself in that spot. So I've actually done that before. But that is only the scenario in that circumstance. Why? Because you're still connected to the bracha. You're not disconnected from it, and there it wasn't exactly the right spot to put it in. It is still connected to that bracha where the correct insertion was supposed to happen. So that to me sounds very much like this, where I'm still. Yeah, that's what you would do. Now you have to really literally catch yourself I guess if you caught yourself in the middle of Baruch Atah Hashem Hamachazir Shechinato, you probably should also finish the bracha at that point because you've already said Shem Hashem. So I guess if you're already in the middle of the siyum of the bracha, you would do that too.
If you receive shalom.
But if you're in the middle, if you're already receiving shalom, you would go back to respect.
Sounds like the Shulchan would agree with what you just said.
Because there's a you're saying it's I was making a toast. I was just going. But if he's there, I might have actually not had in mind Yalav Yalav. Here, there, in the case of Atachon, and I knew it was Shabbos. I was just on, I was on autopilot. Yeah. Yeah.
You didn't say second,
Yeah.
Still go back to it. Right?
Yes.
Did you study Chayei in schools?
No, they did not. I guess.
It's interesting. I think most people don't, but my boys did because they were at MTA. At MTA, you did it, right? Absolutely.
You learned the
Yeah, my
Chayei.
boys did. Yeah, absolutely. They learned Chayei.
We also
And
did
so I've
it at
always said, what? You did what?
Tels.
You did it Tels also. Yeah, no, so I just, but I don't.
It's
you know,
interesting. I don't
get the
think. I don't
impression
think that it's a
happens
thing
in-
now. Yeah.
Yeah, well.
People now
no,
it's Mishnah Berurah.
Yes,
That's
no,
you know,
but I don't see how you could do that because he
If
does
you-
in Paskin, right? And
Right.
so Chayei does, and then, Rav Danzig was your,
Right.
right? So
Yeah.
I mean, I think they have to learn it. So I think
Right.
it's puzzling to me that in most
Most
Hebrew high
yeshivas, too.
schools, let's call it, they
Yeah.
don't do it,
Yeah.
right? MTA does it, TELS does it, right? I bet you they do it
They did it. I don't know. what
in
it
their
is.
Israel
Right.
also.
right.
I bet you.
Interesting. Just end here with he says to look at the Be'er Halacha Mashakasav Od Bazam. We'll look at it next week. I did prepare the Be'er Halacha. There's one here on this Mishnah Berurah, and then there's another one on the next Mishnah Berurah comment of Mishnah Berurah. So we will talk about that next week, and then we will begin next week with talking about things that happen after Amidah, like Vayachulu. We say Vayachulu. We say the Bracha Mein Sheva that that is added in. It's not really quite a repetition, but it's kind of something. So where does that come from? And we'll talk about where you do say the bracha mein sheva, where you don't say the bracha mein sheva. It'll be a lot of shorter halachot, but all very relevant to our Friday night at Tefillah experience. Okay, very good. Take care, everybody.
Hey,
Thank you.
BJ,
What?
I don't know if you caught this, but the rabbi indicated that at the end of this year, when we finish the Sefer, we're going to all